Hello and welcome to another exciting edition of Best MTG Decks Ever. I am your host, Joseph, and today I'm going to be talking to you about some cards from Streets of New Capenna. Alright, to start off, I'm going to be talking about a card called Halo Fountain. Halo Fountain is 2 colorless, 1 white, and it's an artifact, and it's got 3 abilities. Alright, and I'm going to be talking to you guys about a real neat infinite combo that you can pull off with this. Alright, here we go. So, the first ability is 1 white tap to untap a tapped creature you control. Create a 1/1 green and white citizen creature token. Okay, so this ability has to target a tapped creature. The second ability is 2 white, tap this artifact to untap 2 tapped creatures you control to draw a card. And then the third one is 5 white, tap, untap 15 tapped creatures you control, you win the game. All right. So here's the combo that I ended up figuring out. What you're going to need is 2 other cards. You're going to need a Fido Alchemist, 1 colorless, 1 blue, tap to untap target artifact or creature. Now, the interesting thing about this is the way that it's worded is it doesn't say untap a tapped artifact or creature. So you can use this ability on any artifact or creature, regardless of whether or not it's tapped or untapped. The other card is going to be Incubation Druid. It's 1 colorless, 1 green, and its ability is tap to add 1 mana of any type that a land you could produce, a land you control could produce. If Incubation Druid has a +1/+1 counter on it, add 3 mana of that color instead. So you are going to need to have Incubation Druid, and it's going to have a +1/+1 counter on it. And this is the way that this combo works. So you've got all 3 on the table. You tap Incubation Druid to create 3 white mana. Then you use one of those white mana to tap Halo Fountain and untap a tapped creature you control to create a 1/1 green and white citizen creature token. Then you untap the Incubation Druid. So at this point, Halo Fountain is tapped, Incubation Druid is untapped, and a Fido Alchemist is untapped. All right. Then what you do is you tap a Fido Alchemist to untap Halo Fountain. You still have 2 floating white mana. You tap the Incubation Druid for another 3 white mana. So now you've got 5 floating white mana, and they're both tapped. You use the second ability to untap 2 tapped creatures you control to draw a card. So now you draw a card. You've created a 1/1 creature token. You use the 2, so you still have 3 floating white mana. They're both untapped, and Halo Fountain is tapped, and you draw a card. And essentially, you can just keep on doing this, get infinite white mana. You get infinite draws. You can create infinite tokens. Now, because your deck has a finite, I'm assuming, we're going to be using this in Commander. This is going to be kind of hard to pull off in some other formats. And in Commander, you're only going to have 99 cards in your deck, so you won't be able to do draw. I mean, there are ways that you could be. I mean, you've got blue, so of course you could be running Labman, Thoracle, and you could win that way. You could just create a ton of tokens. You could create 15 tokens and figure out some other card to tap all of those, and then with all the infinite mana, untap them, and then you win the game just through this, because you can create 15 guys really easily. You could draw a ton of cards. But yeah, this combo is pretty bonkers. A Fido Alchemist, I mean, if you're watching this, you probably want to go pick up one real quick, because there's only 1 printing of it from Onslaught. There are no other cards that are going to fit this specific little combo. So yeah, I would go grab one of those before they jump in price. Next up, I want to talk about Rumor Gatherer. Rumor Gatherer is 1 colorless, 2 white, and it has Alliance. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, scry 1. If this is the second time this ability has resolved this turn, draw a card instead. This is just an awesome card for white decks that have a lot of creatures in them. Very common in Commander. I'm going to be picking up a few of these to throw in some of my white decks. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, this could even go into some white. It doesn't have to be mono white. I mean, it's got 2 white pips, but if you're only running 2 colors, this will still be easy to get out. Yeah, it's going to be a strong card. Next up, I've got an offer you can't refuse, and that is the name of the card. It is 1 blue. It's an instant counter target non-creature spell. Its controller creates 2 treasure tokens. And it's like when you first read, this is going to be one of those cards that when you first read it, you're like, I don't want to give somebody 2 treasure tokens, but you look at it like this. For 1 blue mana, you shut down that person's win condition and they get 2 treasure tokens. Okay, like I lose the game or I give somebody 2 treasure tokens. I let somebody pop off and go infinite or do some sort of insane, ultra powerful combo, wipe the board, whatever, or I give them 2 tokens. And every single argument that can be made, every scenario that we look at, it's I would rather give them 2 treasure tokens. And if they cast something that's not game changing, well, then you just don't use an offer you can't refuse. The name of the card is awesome. I'm going to grab a few of them. They're probably going to be going in almost all my blue decks. And this is probably also going to be a CEDH card in quite a few decks as well. I mean, I guess those guys are going to have to figure out what kind of effect the treasure cards would happen on the game, but oftentimes every counter is stopping a game-winning play. Yeah, great card. Next up, we've got Broker's Ascendancy. 1 green, 1 white, 1 blue. At the beginning of your end step, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control and a loyalty counter on each planeswalker you control. This one's just a very powerful card. For 3 mana, you're going to be just filling up tons of counters and as well as putting loyalty counters on planeswalkers. This is going to go in every single Atraxa deck, every single Super Friends deck that's got these colors, which almost all of them do. And it's just it's a solid card. It's going to go in a lot of Commander decks. Next up, I've got Cormela Glamour Thief. I will probably build a Commander deck using this just because it's so cool. And coincidentally, this also has some synergy with Aphido Alchemist that I talked about earlier. Because you pay 1 colorless, you tap this, you get 3 mana. You tap Aphido Alchemist to untap this, use 1 of the 3 mana to pay the activation cost, tap this again, and then you get 3 more mana. So you can get 5 free mana every single turn from this. I need to read this card, though. It's got haste, 1 colorless. Activation ability is add 1 blue, 1 black, 1 red. Spend this mana only to cast instant and or sorcery spells. When Cormela Glamour Thief dies, return up to 1 target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard to your hand. Up next, we've got Arcane Bombardment. This card is silly. It's silly. It's an enchantment. It's 4 colorless, 2 red. Whenever you cast your first instant or sorcery spell each turn, exile an instant or sorcery card at random from your graveyard. Then copy each card exiled with Arcane Bombardment. You may cast any number of the copies without paying their mana cost. This is, I mean, the mechanic on this card fits with the name of this card so well. And this is going in any red deck. Any deck that has red in it that's using spells is going to get this because you're just going to be... I mean, the only downside is if you're exiling cards from your graveyard, you won't have access to them again. If Arcane Bombardment gets destroyed, well, then they're gone. So that's the only downside. But if Arcane Bombardment isn't destroyed right away, you're going to be slinging a bombardment of arcane spells at them. Awesome card. Next up, I've got Professional Facebreaker. This is 2 colorless, 1 red. Menace. Whenever 1 or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, create a treasure token. Sacrifice a treasure token, exile the top card of your library. You may play that card this turn. This card is freaking bonkers. It is nuts. People aren't going to understand how crazy this is, but it's you're in a color where it's easy to get your creatures to deal damage to the opponent, and you're going to be creating treasures, and you can either use those treasures to draw cards. I mean, it's essentially drawing cards. You're exiling the top of your library, and you can play that card this turn. So you're either creating treasures so that you can cast spells from your hand, or you can use those treasures to exile cards until you get an answer for whatever you're looking for. This card's definitely going to be going into Prosper decks. You're creating treasures. You're going to be able to cast spells from exile. I mean, if you got Prosper on the deck or on the battlefield, you sacrifice a treasure, exile the card, cast the card, create a treasure. I mean, it's pretty bonkers. So this card's going to be good. Next up, we've got Topiary Stomper. Topiary Stomper is 1 colorless, 2 green, vigilance. When Topiary Stomper enters the battlefield, search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield, tapped, then shuffle. Topiary Stomper can't attack or block unless you control 7 or more lands. This is an amazing ramp card for green. Any deck where you want your ramp to be in the form of a body on the board. So like a deck that appreciates wood elves and cards like that is gonna want this card. Now it's got the 2 green pips, but it's pretty easy in green to get two greens, 2 green mana on the board, even if you're running three colors. And you're getting a 4/4 body, and it's helping you ramp. You're going to be getting to 7 or more lands pretty quick, and it's got vigilance. The card's just it's real good. It's definitely going to be going into some of my decks where creatures matter, and I want some ramp. Next up, we've got Public Enemy. Public Enemy is a really cool card, and there's a little combo that I want to do with it. So it's kind of like a goad effect, even though it doesn't say goad. So Public Enemy is 2 colorless, 1 blue, enchantment aura, enchant creature. Creatures attack enchanted creature's controller each combat if able. When enchanted creature dies, draw a card. So essentially, you cast this out and you put it on, like the best creature that somebody has, and then every combat, each player is going to have to attack this person. All right, and the thinking is that they're gonna block with that creature to destroy this enchantment, so they're not being attacked. However, this is the real nasty combo that I thought of. So you've got Darksteel Mutation. 1 colorless, 1 white. Enchanted creature is an insect artifact creature with base power and toughness 0/1 and has indestructible and loses all other abilities, card types, and creature types. So if this loses all other abilities, I think that it would lose the ability of the enchantment aura from Public Enemy. That's interesting. I'll have to look that up. Because if it does work, then that person's just going to be attacked every single turn, and they're not going to be able to just block with it to take it off the board. It loses all other abilities. I think it would lose the abilities of the enchantment as well. So I don't think that would work. But I am curious if there's something out there to Maybe someone can leave it in the comments or something, but I'm going to be looking for this because I really want to use this card. Because it would really piss people off to be attacked every single turn, and there's nothing they can do to stop it. Yeah, those are my previews for Streets of New Capenna. Those are the cool new cards that I found. The one that I'm really, really, really looking forward to is Halo Fountain with the Aphido Alchemist Incubation Druid combo. And I am going to be building the Cormela Glamour Thief deck and doing some shenanigans with her as well. Lots of untap mechanics that you can put in there to just get lots of mana for casting spells. And hope you guys enjoy the video. Have a good day. Bye-bye.